morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on diversity on screen in the European audiovisual sector. This event this morning is actually the third event of a series which has been organised as part of a current EU project ongoing, organised by the European social partners, and we're really delighted to welcome you here this morning. We are offering interpretation. You'll have seen the little note there inviting you to select your channel. We have English, French, and Spanish. And we're also running this as a webinar, which means that you won't be able to actually activate your mic. And so I'd invite you already at this point to consider putting any questions or comments in the chat. You're also welcome to turn on the captions that are running this morning. We have captions in English, so for anyone who would like to use the captions for accessibility, that's a possibility as well. So turning to today's webinar, this is really one of the kind of flagship events of our current project looking at diversity on screen. The project itself is really building on a body of work by the European social partners, and the overall objective is to really improve the capacity of the sector to implement diversity policies and really make a difference. We've looked at different aspects of diversity already in the course of the project. We've certainly spent some time on looking at pathways into the sector. We've also looked at the types of strategies different actors in the sector can adopt. But today we're really, I think, getting to the heart of the matter, turning our attention to the question of diversity on screen. Speaking for myself, I'm the Deputy General Secretary of the International Federation of Actors, and this question is something that's really been at the heart of my work for FIA since the very outset. And I think that for performers, you know, the whole question of diversity and equality on screen has a very, very direct resonance to the kind of opportunity they have to practice their craft, and really a very direct impact on their working lives. But of course, it also relates directly to the wider societal question of portrayal of who do we see on screen, how do we see them, and importantly, how can we actually change that if we feel that we're not capturing a true reflection of the societies that we are today. And so this webinar this morning will aim to dig a bit deeper into this important topic. I'd like to introduce our three speakers this morning, and a very warm thank you to them for joining us. We have three speakers today. So first we will be joined by Jennifer De La Rosa. Jennifer is a screenwriter and a director and a producer of fiction and documentary films. She describes herself as a woman, a forced migrant, an adopted person from Colombia in Spain, and a racialized person. And this is the very, diverse baggage that she brings to her work and to how she approaches everything that she does as a director, screenwriter, and producer. And also she's a member of a migrant and racialized women's group in the Spanish association CEMA. And we'll be hearing a lot about the work of that association and some of the outcomes that it has produced from Jennifer. Secondly, I'll be pursuing the conversation with Flavia Fazenda. Flavia is an actor, and she's also the Vice Chair of the Equity UK Race Equality Committee. So this is an important committee within the union, the Performers Union Equity in the UK, and it's a committee that's taken on the challenges of working on everything to do with race equality and how it impacts on the lives of performers in the UK. And we'll hear more from Flavia about her own experience as a performer in the UK and also about the work that Equity is doing via its committee. And then finally this morning, we will be turning to Lars Damgaard Nielsen, who is the CEO and co-founder of a company called Media Catch. And always in these conversations, we always grapple with the big challenge of actually monitoring diversity, of understanding how things are playing out on screen now, and how to monitor, how to measure, and thereby to actually enact change. And I think Lars's contribution is really, really vital in that regard, as he has been very active in developing a company that has the technology to really measure and monitor what is appearing on our screens, and to analyze where change is happening and where change is needed. So we'll be also hearing from Lars. So as I said at the beginning, questions can be put in the chat and we'll be happy to take them as we go along. I'm now going to invite our first speaker, Jennifer, to join me here on the screen. Jennifer is joining us from Mexico, and we're very, very grateful to her for making the effort to be with us despite the time difference. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning or good night. Hello from the past.
Hello. Jennifer, thank you for the presentation you've prepared. I know that you're going to tell us a little bit more about the working group within the Spanish Association CEMA on migrants and racialized women. And we really look forward to hearing from you a little bit more about that group, about its work, about what it's produced, and how you see this going forward. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for introducing me, and thank you for inviting me also. Okay, let's see if can I share the screen. Okay, so here we are. Okay, so dear future, become with me. Hello from the past. I'm talking to you from 3 in the morning here, but don't worry. It's always a good time to connect with Industry College. Thank you for inviting me, and apologize if I say something incorrect. English is not my mother tongue. And as you said, I'm the representative of migrants, racialized, and other minorities at CEMA. CEMA was founded in 2006, 18 years ago. CEMA is the Association of Women Filmmakers and Audiovisual Media in Spain. We are a professional association, and our goals are to promote gender equality presence of filmmakers and professionals in our sectors, contributing to a balanced and realistic representation of women within the context offered on our industry. And this is part of the group of the women migrants and racialized of CEMA. This one was our first meeting, and this is the last one. And okay, having said that, our group was born out of the need to find others like us, not only women belonging to the industry, but also migrant and racialized women, to share our experience, concerns, and desires for change. That's how, through our president, Cristina Andreu, I met the scriptwriter Anna Alkimin, who is the other representative. Both of us share the feeling of being impostors. We belong, but didn't belong to the Spanish industry. She is Brazilian and has been living in Spain for over a decade. As you say, I'm an adoptee. I was born in Colombia, and every day both of us are reminded that we are foreigners, and not in a pleasant way. And this has an impact on our creative work. Well, after talking a lot, Anna and I, we had a first meeting after CEMA announced the formation of this group, and we together did an online meeting and share our sorrows and be moved by how much we had in common despite being so different. We were 27 women on that time. And in our group, we have people from all 5 continents, immigrants or racialized individuals. It was a beautiful experience, and the outcome of this meeting was that we had an undertake a study and organize more sessions and conference, And the study was completed as the conference. Well, we are still in process, but we were invited to many. Okay. The study we did in 2022 with the support of the Spanish government and the University of Salamanca about the situation and perception of ourselves, migrate, racialized, and other minorities, working women at audiovisual in Spain, because it resumed the aim of our working group. CIMA has also, okay, in Spain, historically, the ethnic origin variable is not collected. It has an explication, but it's too long. But we are now trying to collect this information because the legislation is changing also. But it was not forbidden also. About our report, the vast majority of the contact women was 54% are actresses, and some of them are also engaged in other audiovisual related professions, while the remaining 45% work in technical positions. First and foremost, adapting to the society. Well, if you come from another country with the experience and expertise from another industry, even another language, and different working values and morals of working, in addition to adapting to their knowledge, it's very difficult to access to professional contacts. You have to know who to contact. It's difficult to come across people in higher positions. And secondly, when you look at the billboard, we don't feel represented. We constantly see the same faces again and again, knowing that we contribute immensely in what is being represented. And furthermore, is the defined roles and characters we are labeled and classed in certain categories for specific roles that make us feel less than. And now I'm going to address our challenge and barriers we face when integrated and adapting in Spain. Our challenge at first is that our voices weren't being heard by our colleagues in the industry, but there was a bigger problem at the beginning, and that was that we even know what our voice were, where we are, how many we are, what are our professions. We were silent by ourselves. We felt that we were part of CEPI, one of the almost 1,000 members that we are, with professional problems, but we didn't think that we could share our problems as working class migrants, racialized, and other minorities, as directors, scriptwriters, actresses, and techniques. And one of the problems is the masculinization of the technical areas. And also, we are very few females migrants or realized workers. So the objectives to achieve is to implement gender and ethnic racial quotas. And furthermore, we will not put aside stigmatization and discrimination. We feel that there is some institutional racism. So if we go to the topic of applying for grants, as a producer, that's I am, you have to born or to live in certain cities in Spain to be considered for this grant. And even if you are an immigrant living in these cities, you are not considered, which is heartbreaking. After having grown up and lived in the city of Spain for over 20 years, I would not have considered applying because I don't live there now and neither born there. I was there. So if I were to apply, there's a very slim possibility that I will be considered. So what else? Facilitate access to technical positions. Also, another important point of address will be the wage inequity. There is a difference in hiring process for women. According to our report, less than 40% of us are women. And how many of those are minority? We don't know because none of the productions companies that were candidates of Goya Awards in 2021 wanted to disclose that information. And to add in salt to the injury, in Spain, service, as I said, service don't ask about the origin or cultural background either. And it's something that is trying to be changed. And we have also limitations and suppressions of potential talent just because of where we are from or how we look that make us that we are not going to find work because we don't have references. And we have a low self-esteem, esteem according to the study. Also, we don't want to talk about it for fear of being ostracized. And the acceptance is at last, but not at least, acceptance. Us learning our importance in the industry and what we bring to the table. New points of views, new narratives, new approaches. Now they are realizing that the platforms ask for that. They are no one way to what is in us. The few reference we have of professionals working behind the scenes, we're a long way here with a lot of hurdles and struggles. Well, improvements and contribution of immigrants of futures in the Spanish audiovisual community, excuse me. In Spain, this movement is beginning. Ours is the first study in Spain about the perception as professionals, and there is a long way to go. Gracefully, the first anti-racism law is about to be approved, and there are a lot of work in the sector, and they are looking for us. There are many residencies and programs that we already have quota for us. Okay, this is CEMA Impulsa, and with the support of Netflix and the Culture Ministry, and also CEMA Mentoring One-to-One, also with the support of Netflix, and CEMA 10, CEMA 10, with the support of the Prime Video. So the future looks better and promising. We have remarkable projects and experience. Also, we are happy to announce that we are working nowadays to create a commission in CEMA. And the idea is to have at least one representative from each of these groups: sustainability, racialized and migrant women, LGBTQ+, accessibility and inclusion, and work-life balance. So, and here I have some pictures of my college talking about the report in many places and the internationality, and also in some short and experiences, short movies programs as Tema 10, and also here is the Film Academy, the Spanish Film Academy, who's also thinking and implementing some courses and asking us for how to change. This is one of my all the group having a meeting. And yes, here we are, like trying to connect, and that's all. I hope you understand everything I said. Thanks, merci, and gracias.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jennifer. Well, I'm going to take any questions that are posted in the chat at this point. So please, if you have questions for Jennifer, don't hesitate to post them in the chat. I have one or two things myself, Jennifer, that I would be interested in hearing a little bit more about from you. You touched on a number of areas that I think are very relevant to the discussions we're having today, but also to some of the discussions we've had in the other events in this project, and some of the discussions that are really at the heart of making some change in the sector. So one of the things that you mentioned is that sometimes as you know, a migrant or racialized person, you can feel that the odds are stacked against you already at the point of making an application for funding, that for reasons beyond your control, you have less of a chance of actually coming into consideration for some of the grants and some of the support that's out there that's so fundamental to the way that the sector works. So could you maybe talk a little bit more about how you have seen that play out in practice? And I think you also mentioned that there are changes coming in that area that are, there are measures being taken specifically to address that problem. Of the odds being stacked against certain candidates. So it'd be interesting to hear a little bit more about that.
I think, wow, it's, the answer. Okay, let me explain. We think that as FEMA is going to make this committee, it will be great for the public institutions to have one, to know what are our problems and how to resolve it, because we need to have this dialogue. Okay, we have many different situations, too many different point of views or life events. So how to organize and facilitate for 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 a grant, or for be to yeah for I'm sorry for how to say, for it's important to have this dialogue and to change the rules, and to, because some of them they were wrote in the 90s. So it's like, okay, now we are in 2024, let's sit together. We have where many of us in different areas as a producer, director, so we can dialogue and to see how to change.
Yes, in that dialogue, that's kind of driving some change. You mentioned some very big players. I heard Netflix mentioned, and also I think, if I'm not mistaken,
Right.
Amazon Prime. So that's certainly very influential industry players, and they seem to be taking an active part in a dialogue for change. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and about the influence that they've had?
Okay, yes, in the programs. And yes, they are helping us with the support, the economical support of these programs in THEMA, and they're free different programs for three different stage um, of your projects. So Thema Impulsa is when you have the project in development, but you are in that point that you can share with other producer companies, and you can find the support also of the platform. So they will helping you in this residence along six months is, I think, is the program, and you will have a lot of classes of pitching sessions, and the support of um, um, some master classes with about script writing, direction, and yeah, they will help you as tutors in this project. And that's thema is a really good uh, place to be. And other program is thema mentoring one-to-one, and that one is to professionalize to one sector, to specialize as a editor or as a director of photography of more or director. So both of them are open from Latin America also. So because they are virtual and also presential, but you can apply for them. The only thing is like you have to talk in Spanish, but it's a really good point also to share knowledge between all the Spanish language countries. And also as immigrant, as a Latin American immigrant, I think is a very good way to know other women's, other professional women's. And nowadays, between women's that just finished the Thema Impulsa program or Thema Mentoring one-to-one, we are working together. So that's super nice. And Netflix is supporting both of the the programs, and it's just the economical support. The thema has the power to choose who is um, elected to be in that program. So that's great. And the other program is Thema 10, Thema 10, and this is for young people. So it's also, they keep an eye on migrant and racialized people, and also people, young people till 25, I think, or 28, that they are not living only in Madrid. So they decentralize the the industry only in Madrid or Barcelona, and that's very important for us. And in that way, in Thema 10, they have to write a script, and they will make the short movie. So they will have a tutor, and they will shoot the movie as a professional, and it's a really good way to introduce in the industry. as a young, I would love to when I was a teenager to have this opportunity. So, and that was also thanks to the support of Amazon Prime. So, and it's the same. The um, who is deciding who is the best script or is thema. So it's a committee of thema. We are free to choose and how are the or what are the rules.
Mhm. So you kind of retain the creative control as such.
Yes.
Wonderful. So you've talked a lot about different partners, Jennifer, and the way that that has built into something. There's a question in the chat asking whether the trade unions are in any way part of the discussion or the partnership that's been happening. As you know, this is an event of the social partners, so we have, the industry representatives and very much also the worker representatives. And it's just to understand a little bit maybe where the unions do or could be a part of this important work.
Well, I'm sorry, but I don't know that much about trade unions. I know there are some importance in Spain as a uh, I'm sorry
But don't worry,
now.
we know them. You don't have to name them.
Okay, okay. So, but I don't know, but I am sure other people in Thema are talking with them because we are 1,000 and
Mhm.
the experts committee, I'm sure they
You're
they know
you're
about
quite right. You're quite right. Certainly, the
it.
unions have been involved in CEMA
Yes,
in various aspects of the work, but I think this could be also an important aspect. And we'll hear a little bit more from our next speaker about the role of trade unions. So it was just to explore
I'm
whether that's
sorry.
on the table. That's no problem. I have one last question to you. If you were giving advice to some of the people that are listening here today, about how to actually kind of go from, this situation where everybody was a bit isolated and people didn't really feel, that there was a connection or that they could break into the industry to having, quite a lot now, it seems, of support and programs and a network as well that can be really supportive. So what do you think is the best way to get started on that work? It sounds like this report was an important focus. So what's a good vehicle to actually kind of bring people together and start to try and make a change?
The report, it was great to also to be known and to to have many calls of other partners and other people from other cities of Spain. And also I went to Trieste to the think tank last year to talk about the report. And in all of these events, I met somebody who is interested as a woman uh, to participate and to see how contribute and how to share their experience. And the way is to talking and to be visible as we are in this point. That's why I accept to be here, because it's very important to to have face and voice,
Mm.
and that's the first point. And nowadays we are 40 women in our group and in our working group, and we are expecting to grow, and also to emphasize the the importance of the statistics and the numbers, because without numbers we are nothing. So that's why it's important to have this a new way to account us, and
Mhm.
to anonymously also to talk about who we are, where we are, but not without name, but without names.
Mhm. Okay, yes, visibility. I think that
Visibility,
is
yeah.
something very important. And thank you, Jennifer, for generously accepting to be visible and be a representative here today. We've really enjoyed having you. I'm going to turn my attention now to our next speaker, but we'll have a final opportunity at the end to come together, and if there are other questions at that time, to dig into them a little bit. So thank you, Jennifer. So I'm now going to invite performer Flavia Fazenda to join me. Hello, Flavia. Good morning. Very nice to have you here. So as I mentioned, Flavia is involved in the Racial Equality Committee in Equity UK. Equity UK is a performers union, an affiliate of FIA, a very valued affiliate of FIA, and one of our founder members. And Flavia has taken up an active role in this committee, of which she's the vice chair. And of course, she's a performer, a working performer herself. So Flavia, it'd be very nice to hear a little bit from you this morning about the Race Equality Committee in Equity. Maybe you could tell us a little bit how this committee came to exist, and some of the work that it's working on right now, some of the key concerns.
Well, I am one of the newest members. I just joined in the last election. It turned, and we joked, I'm one of the last cynical ones. I haven't dealt with all the hardships too much to become as cynical, but it started roughly 15 years ago, but not as a committee, because we do have a lot of issues here in the UK regarding race and everything. And so we have our chair, Daniel, he's been one of the founding members. He started with the group, and now it turned into a committee. And yeah, we face several difficulties when it comes to race and equality, and we are kind of expanding that to also ethnicity and somehow to all protected characteristics, for example, because for even the ones that are not officially recognized as accents, because Jennifer spoke a lot about being immigrant and everything, and yeah, we're going to speak more of that because it's not considered a protected characteristics, but there are a lot of immigrant artists and they are being denied opportunities. And one of the latest achievements of the committee was equity in general, was an agreement with hair and makeup for Black performers. Because I've heard from a performer once, she said she would get several times, it happened to her, getting on set, the makeup artist would come and, oh, let me see, your complexion is amazing. Your skin is wonderful. You don't need makeup. And that's called for, I don't have your foundation. Or your hair's fine. You don't need anything. That's called for, I don't know how to deal with that. So now there is an agreement in place that's going to be stated in contract that they need to provide, productions need to provide someone that with the understanding of makeup, with and if the performer has to provide their own base foundation, the matching foundation, they're going to be covered, or they can find someone who can deal with their hair and it's covered. It's like, you know, it's their right, because it's unfair that everyone on set is made up with hair done, makeup done, and just because you're Black, brown, or we don't deal with you. That's one of the fights we've been doing. And one of the things I would like to do, just expand, is propose a reflection here, because I notice we've been using a lot of the wording here, and we are using diversity. I take issue with the word diversity when it comes to that, because diversity has become like a box to check, something that it has to be done. And if you think about it, I'm going to give an example. There's been a play from Silvio Berlusconi. There were all sorts of people on the cast. There were like mixed race. There were Southern Asians. There were white people. Is it diverse? Yes, but none of them were Italian. So is it representative of the story being told? So no. There is another example that was big here was Cold War, a play written by a Polish. Three of the characters are Polish, take place in Poland during the Cold War, hence the name. Two of the actors were white males, white British males. One of the character was half Indian, half the female character. Is it diverse? Yes. Is it representative? No. So that's the thing. If you are into internet lingo, as the kids would say, noob, diversity is noob, you know. But if you think the pro is representation, and the hacker would be equal opportunity and inclusion. That's what we want, equal opportunity, rather than, because diversity also, it forces people in power, people who are making decisions, the decision makers there, we are talking producers, artistic directors, everyone. I have to say, I don't want to, but it's in fact a middle-aged white British man. So when they think of diversity, first thing that comes to their mind is reparation. So here in the UK, reparation is West Indies, so that would be Black, Ghanaian, Nigerian, and South Asian, like India or Pakistan. So you're gonna see most of that, but that not all the time represents the cast, represents the stories being told. And also that leads to tokenism, a lot of tokenism. You're gonna see sometimes you see an entire white cast and that one token, non-white person. So stand out like sore thumbs. So if you think of representation, another example was a play in Leicester. Leicester is a city here in the West Midlands where 44% of the population, according to the census, declare themselves as Asian or British Asian. So Evita, that was extremely problematic, that casting. For starters, there is no Latin American whatsoever. And in Leicester, where that amount, 44% of the population declare being Asian, there was not a single one on an ensemble, on casting, on everything. So that's not representative of that area. But when you talk about inclusion and especially equal opportunity, I think that will lead to a different approach, a different perspective on this matter. It's like our performers of certain backgrounds, certain marginalized group are being offered as much opportunities as other performers. And the first counter argument you have for this is, oh, but isn't acting about being someone else? Isn't acting about portraying someone else, being able to be someone who you are not? Yes, it is, but unfortunately, my reality in the UK is only white, British, straight, able-bodied performers are able to act. All others are pigeonholed and only able to play themselves all the time. So when you think, again, equal opportunities is a shift in the point of view, in the perspective that can finally get that, you know, representation, everyone being seen, more diversity on screens.
It's just a very complex discussion, I think, Flavia. I mean, it's really interesting, the different aspects that you've raised there. And I think, you know, it really requires us to kind of dig a bit deeper into indeed what these words mean. And I think the kind of nuance that you've developed around the idea of representativeness is very interesting. But I think we have to ask ourselves, you know, what are we representing? Is it the local community? Is it the whole of society? Is it the story itself, you know, as it's told? And I think these are questions that really require reflection and also creative and artistic reflection. So very, very interesting to hear your thoughts on that. So you mentioned a little bit about casting and this problem of tokenism and also pigeonholing and how that actually impacts directly on opportunities for performers. Is this question of casting something that Equity has looked at, trying to actually really give this equal opportunity and make it more of a practice in the industry?
Absolutely. And from that, we also think a lot of cast. But we need to think of cast and crew and creatives, because that, I think, is where the change comes. Because it's very unlikely that a producer, a director, or a showrunner with a diverse background will say, especially a producer, let's take producer just for an example, they will not, it's unlikely that he or she is going to say, no, I'm not going to invest on a story about this marginalized group because it's not going to be interested. It's not going to be, it's not going to have return. I'm not thinking about that. It starts from the chain, from the background. It's like the cast is the consequence. The behind the scenes is the cause. So if you have directors, casting directors, you see, especially here in the UK, you see the casting directors with ethnic background or, racialized or global majority background. They tend to put more of those sorts of talents in when they cast a project. And yes, answering specifically your question, we have been involved with several opportunities on the casting. We've been dealing with a lot, especially theater, questionable casting decisions. As I said, ultimately, we've been seeing for the immigration, because unfortunately, accent is not a protected characteristic, so they don't care. And it's funny how it's acceptable that a performer can just put a funky accent and that's completely passable. It's the kind of thing that, and the main thing we deal with, like I said, is pigeonhole. Specifically immigrants here. You have an immigrant name, you have an immigrant face, you are immediately labeled as a performer who can only speak another language. And you're only cast on that. You're only, and that's if you're lucky enough to fit the stereotype or the archetype that you're supposed to, that the people have in their minds. Like, oh, this is how a Nigerian look. This is how a Mexican look. So if you're lucky enough to fit that profile, you're gonna be cast. So we're trying to see here through equal opportunities that performer is a performer who can also speak a foreign language. They can play anything. They are not limited to that one character, one stereotype, one archetype. That's one of the equal opportunities that we've been dealing a lot, like I said, in Cold War, when it's a missed opportunity. That's like Polish people could be cast, Berlusconi, Italian, could be cast, Evita, Latin American. Again, the House of Bernarda Alba, there were no Hispanics, no Latin American here. So it's a missed opportunity. And it's like, well, I don't want to go with say they don't talk about politics, but arts are political, whether we like it or not. We always reflect the society. And you might be aware the situation here in the UK, we have 14 years of conservatives in power, and we are supposed to have a general election this year. And there's been more and more attacks on immigrants. Immigrants here are the scapegoats. So that's the time more than ever to use the arts to normalize, to validate immigrants, because if we live like us against them, it's always going to be like, oh, they come here, they live on benefits, they this. But if you show them on a good light, playing like nice, the doctor, playing the teacher, instead of being the terrorist, the drug dealer, it's a shift on the societies, because that's another thing the arts has the ability to do. It's introduced, I even wrote down, because it's an intergroup contact theory, that the more exposure or contact people have with groups who are different from them, the less likely they would be to bias towards those groups. So you do need people of all walks of life on TV, on stage, everywhere, to normalize, accept them as, you know, not that bad stereotype, but accept them as any walk of life as well.
Yeah, I think that's a very powerful point, Flavia. And I also think that, you know, you're really raising a window of opportunity here, you know, early in a creative process to kind of open eyes to the fact that casting a play, you know, like Evita or like this Cold War play, that it can be an opportunity to engage with actors and give opportunities that they could access in this context that could really work. When we were having the conversation with Jennifer, she mentioned that actually some of the big streamers have been quite a supportive partner in advancing inclusion and diversity for migrant and racialized women, working with her association. I wondered if in Equity the streamers have also been part of the discussion on diversity, or if you think they have played a positive role in the UK industry in opening up opportunity?
Well, I would have to be honest with you and say that I don't have that straight information, because, but again, it comes from what we call here the gatekeepers. It's mainly the hands of casting directors and producers, people who are in power, the powers that be. And there's been a lot of improvement in here in the UK. Of course, there is more room for improvement, for more representation. You see, like the cast of Heartstopper, if I'm not mistaken, is cast here, and you have a transgender of color, so it's incredible. You have the latest Doctor Who, one of the most famous UK shows, Shutgawa, who is of Black descent. So you do have, little by little, you do have some opportunities. There is an outcry. When I think Jodie Smith is her name, she played one British Queen. People, a Black British Queen, no, that's too much. But people are daring, because one of the things I always say, the greatest problem of this industry is not the lack of diversity, not anything that we can, is fear. People are always afraid from speaking up to break modes like that, push the envelope, like casting a Black British Queen. So they did that once. So that's already a step in the right direction. So there is hope for us, yes.
And I think expanding the conversation as you have done to that wider chain, you know, all of the gatekeepers and also the providers of funding, it's very important to have that full picture in your mind. Does the Racial Equality Committee have anything, any kind of goals right now going forward, specific aspects that they want to handle, or any campaigns or other ideas in mind?
Yeah, mainly we have a few ones, like I said, I just joined New Blood. I'm not yet seen it, I haven't been. Yeah, but one of the things is equal opportunities, try to break this mentality that certain people can only play certain roles, yet, you know, them being seen for every sort of role, and then we're gonna stop complaining about, you know, let us do this job. But just one point, Jennifer mentioned, and is the same problem here in the UK, which is GDPR, which are the rules, the
data protection, yeah,
the data protection, privacy. So all the times we get in contact with a theater, listen, your cast is not very diverse, you have and everything, and that's it. We get stopped in that. We say, we can give you much of, yeah, we checked, we asked them, they said they have that background, they are diverse, they are ethnic, and that's it. We cannot say any more because of privacy. and that's it. Your hands are tied and you're done. And we have a lot of the equality monitoring forms here. And one of the places they said, oh, we don't know how many people we saw in casting because we hand out 52 and only 38 came back. And that's it. Well, once they get the data, there is no one to contact. We can ask, but like they said, once they said that the East Asian representation was amazing, you know, so they can fake numbers and we have to accept. So we are trying, I wouldn't say circumvent, so find a loophole, but we need one of the projects. How can we hold, you know, the casting process, or the gatekeepers, the casting accountant, 4 days for this casting? How can we make sure that everybody's saying, everybody's having an equal opportunity in cast? That's one of the problems we have. And yeah, try to always try to get a genuine representation of modern British society, you know, everywhere, TV, films, theater. That's always gonna be a challenge for us. And as we say, not make a cast colorblind, but color conscious, you know, that everybody needs an attention. And yeah, mainly see as every day there is a different, like we said, we dealt with the makeup and hair for Black members, and now we see immigrants or others, I don't ever know white, as we say here, the global majority, you know, that it needs to be more represented. They're not really, they are forgotten. They're falling into oblivion in the arts. So we need to find a space for them.
Well, I think it's been great to hear about some of the advances equity has made. I think the hair and makeup provisions are going to be an inspiration for other unions elsewhere. I'm certain of that. I know that equity is also working hard to ensure that that getting access to casting services is affordable and accessible for everyone. That it's not priced out of the range of you know, most working actors. I think that's another vital part of the same question. And I hope that maybe, you know, with political change in the air, there'll also be room to advocate for, you know, some of the very progressive approaches that you've been describing in relation to funding creative projects too. So it's been wonderful to have a non-cynical voice then, Flavia, who hasn't had time to become too disenchanted yet with just how difficult it is to really make change in this space, and to hear some of the positive things that equity's been doing. So a big thank you for sharing that today. I haven't seen very many questions in the chat as of yet, but there'll be another chance at the end of the webinar in our final segment to put any additional questions to Flavia. But for now, I think we'll turn our attention to this tricky question of monitoring. And thank you, Flavia. And indeed, Flavia did raise some of the difficulties, as did Jennifer, of actually collecting data on ethnic background and on you know, how many people are seen of different ethnic backgrounds in a given project. So I think that this is where Lars can really open some doors for us and give us some ideas about how we can measure and actually take account of change that's happening in this sensitive space, where, you know, GDPR and other legal frameworks mean that that collecting data can be tricky. So Lars, thank you for joining us. So as I mentioned, Lars is CEO and co-founder of a company called Media Catch in Denmark, and really looking forward to hearing you, Lars, about the work you've done with the software that you've developed, and with the important measuring and analysis that you've been leading on. So please, Lars, the floor is yours.
Thank you for that introduction, and I hope I can bring maybe some numbers, but I know I can bring maybe some methods to measure on a larger scale. I'm just going to share my screen here, so I can share the presentation. Let's see. Yeah. But yeah, my name is Lars. I'm the CEO and co-founder of MediaCatch, and MediaCatch is the parent company of one of our products that we call Diversity Catch. And basically, Diversity Catch is a tool, a software solution to measure diversity in different way in different types of content. And I will go into the methodology that we use and what kind of numbers and insights you can get out of it. And then in the end of the presentation, I will show you a benchmark we did of 25 European broadcasters. So, and then of course we can discuss in the input on the other subjects as well. But just give you an idea of where we come from. As I mentioned, I'm the CEO of a company called MediaCatch, and we produce Diversity Catch. But the background from MediaCatch is that we are a spin-out company from the University of Southern Denmark with a team of experts in data analysis, AI scientists, and computer vision specialists. And we have more than 75 peer-reviewed academic articles among our employees. So we are based we are based in science, and we're based in real knowledge. And I tend to say this because there's a lot of AI companies out there right now. So this is basically just me trying to say we're not just based on ChatGPT. We actually know what we're doing. But we created a Diversity Catch because we could see that there was a lot of people discussing this agenda, but only with opinions. I love this quote: if we have data, let's look at the data. If all we have are opinions, let's go with mine. And myself, I experienced that. I have a background in journalism, also working for Danish Broadcasting Corporation, which is the equivalent of BBC in our small country. So when I worked there, I could see that when the discussions were around these topics, it was often, you only have data from this week or this specific program, so you couldn't make any strategic decisions. And I could see that that was possible to do with big data AI analysis. So that's basically why we created Diversity Catch. So what we do is that we try to close this data gap in the DEI space, so you can make data-driven decisions based on insights. And what we do is that we listen to the audio of some content, or we see the video, or we read a website or a picture on a website. Then we run it through our AI, and then in the end you'll get some insights you can act on. And we do that on every type of media, from broadcast to social media to everything else. So basically what we do, to be more concrete, is that we look for who is in the content. Is it a female or a male? What's the origin of those on screen? How old are they? And we also use facial recognition with some of our clients to remove the hosts from the dataset, because a normal journalist doesn't have an impact on who's the host, but they have an impact on who they put in their story. So remove the host from the data, the insights as well. Then we look for the gender who's speaking to identify who is dominating the conversation. Is it a male or female? And then in the end, the data we also have is what are they actually speaking about? So, and that way we can discover subjects of the discussions, or identify underrepresentation or misrepresentation in topics if you know what you're looking for. So, and I know you probably have some questions regarding the precision of the AI, and we are open about what we do and the precisions that we have. And these are some of the numbers. I can discuss them maybe later on, but it's pretty accurate with facial recognition and the gender and the age. And basically, what our AI does is the same as a human, in the way that I can look at a person and I can think, oh, you are that age. But if you have a lot of wrinkles, you will maybe look older. If you have used Botox, you will look younger. So that's the same as we as humans. So if we're looking at an actor that has had a lot of Botox in them, they will look younger, both to the AI and to people in general. So then we have all these insights and data from different platforms. And one of the things we can look at is the share representation. We can look for the share between males and females. We can look for the average age between males and females, and we can also look during program or during a movie or whatever. But this is just the DEI representation to to understand those on screen and in the audio as well. So that's just one way of looking at it. Another way is to look at it in the way of looking at males. This is a real case, an example from a TV station where we are looking at the distribution of Caucasian and non-Caucasian females and males. So we can see that in this specific case, they have more non-Caucasian males than they have females. And yeah, so that's a way to split the data and go into the insights, so you can actually act on it if you have some goals around that. But that's just representation. I think it gets more interesting when we look at yeah, I'll get to that in a second. But again, if we look at representation, and this is a real data from some of our clients, but the graph to the right is pretty interesting here, because here you can see we split it in the genres from the EBU. So we know, okay, we have movies, we have news, we have sports, and we can see, okay, the percentage of women on this channel in prime time by different genres, it's content. We're almost at 50-50, but all the other types of content, it just goes down from there. Then we look at current affairs and movies and news, and not a lot of females in that type of content. So that's just when, for instance, we are tracking a TV station 24/7, we can do all these kinds of analysis on top of the data. But one thing is the sheer representation of gender and age and so on screen. The other thing is when we go deeper into topics to understand basically what the topics are female talking about, what kind of experts are talking about a specific topic, and so on. So what we do there, the methodology is that we will listen to the audio from either TV or radio. Then we will transcribe this into text, and then we will do natural language processing on top of that to identify the specific topics in the content and identify what kind of the sources it is. So we know speaker 13 here in this case, that's a male, but it's also a journalist. And speaker 5 is an expert, but a female. And that way we can start to work with the data and get some insights that the different programs or broadcasters or media companies can work with. So this is an example from a daily news show where we can see that if we look at different topics in that show, we know the distribution of speaking time for women and men in topics. So in this case, you know, when we talk about welfare, women makes up of 70% of the time that this topic is on the screen. Another thing we also do, this is just a distribution of speaking time in the specific topics, but actually in this case, I can remember that welfare only makes up of 2% of the time all in all in this daily news show. So basically in this case, we can also look at, okay, welfare makes up of 2% of the time in the show, and here women have 70% of the airtime when they speak. So that's just another way of looking at it to see, are there something we can change here? Do we need new experts? Do we need to cover some other topics as well? So that's just some of the examples that are pretty actionable, these insights. And then we also know what kind of person it's who's on screen. Is it a private individual? Is it a representative? And is it an expert? And then again, we can distribute the speaking time, and we can also go deeper into the topics and so on. So these are just some examples of insights you can get out. And again, yeah, many examples of different things that you can get out of this. This is just looking at, for instance, non-Caucasian and topics to see in this country, do this broadcaster have a real representation of the public they are serving? And here there might be a problem, because in this case, there are more than 15% of the population that are of non-Caucasian descent. But if we look at the non-Caucasian and topics, we can see none of it is about internal affairs or it's not internal affairs. None of it is domestic. Everything is foreign affairs. So there might be a challenge here of people of non-Caucasian descent actually just being a part of the news in this case. Yeah, and before I go into the 3 ways we work, is also there. We also have some more granular insights. For instance, we know if you have a call-in show on the radio, we know that if the first person who calls in is a female, we can see with data that the rest of the show will have more female persons who calls in, and there will be more females in that show. We also know if you have a classic debate program on television with politicians, for instance, if the first person who gets a question and answer that is a female, the females will talk more in that show as well. So there are all kinds of different insights you can get out of this data when we go deeper into the analysis of this. But basically, we deliver insights in 3 different ways, and we have dashboards on demand solutions and in depth, and you just saw some examples of the in depth we're delivering. But the dashboard could be on a channel level, covering a channel 24/7, but different numbers. I won't go into this. This is just an example also for a dashboard on a program level where you can look at the data for a specific program over time and see the development, and you can use this in your day-to-day work because we do the analysis live. And again, we also do on-demand analysis of content, so you can either just try it for yourself or integrate it via an API and so on. But this is just a way to get insights. And then the last thing is our European benchmark we did some month ago, where we actually took 25 European broadcasters from different countries and compared them with gender, age, and origin of the people on screen. Here we didn't listen to the audio, we didn't analyze the audio here, but we only looked at the 3 basics: gender, age, and origin. And we looked in different countries in Europe, and basically the main story, or maybe the sad story here, is that there was only one broadcaster who was available, who was having a 50-50 split in just the person on screen. And just remember, one thing is the 50-50 split in representation on screen, but then under that you have the topics. And we normally see that even though there's a fair split in gender on screen, when we start to search and listen to the topics, the fair distribution, if I may say so, is not that fair. There's a lot of misrepresentation or maybe underrepresentation. So basically, this was the numbers that we were able to get out of these broadcasters. And as you can see, only the Swedish broadcaster SVT1 had a pretty neat distribution of males and females. And the same goes for the average age on different broadcasters. We're also able to see that, and also the percentage of Caucasian, non-Caucasian, and select European broadcasters. So these are just some of the numbers that we have on benchmark level, but it's more interesting, I think, to go deeper into the specific genres and the specific programs and so on. And by the way, our AI has actually been vetted by some of the clients we work with. And if you compare the data we get out of the content to, self-monitoring of gender and topics and so on, our AI is between 0 to 5% from that of the self-reporting. But that just means that instead of having programs self-reporting and use a lot of resources on that, you can get the AI to do that for you. And you can do it 24/7 on all programs, on all your channels, on your websites, social media, and so on. So that makes it possible to basically make strategic decisions based in insights instead of just opinions. So just 2 extra things. We are part of the European Broadcasting Union's DI casebook. I'm going to jump over that. But more interestingly is also that we are using sometimes our technology to monitor editorial prioritizations. So this is a case from a television station where we're monitoring different politicians. How much airtime do they get? Is it from different parties to identify are they skewed in any way, and they use it as an internal tool and to understand their website and their television station as well. So that's it for me, and I hope you have a lot of questions. And if not, that's also okay. But that was it. Thank you. And thank you for taking your time to listen to this.
Very interesting, and I do see a few questions coming in the chat. Could I just ask, just for clarification immediately, the European kind of snapshot that you took, how much, like over what period of time was
Oh,
the
sorry. Yeah,
spread?
we did one month.
1 month.
Because we basically did it because we think it's an important issue. Of course, it would be nice to do it 24/7, 365, but that would require some funding that we don't have as a small company, where this is actually our purpose project. We work with big companies like Red Bull and other companies on a more commercial based section of our technology, where we get a lot of the revenue in our company. But we care deeply about this topic because we have a background in broadcasting, a lot of us, and we saw there was an opportunity here to help drive this agenda.
And could I just ask another question, kind of for clarity? I think AI has kind of raced to the forefront of almost all kind of topical discussions at the moment in our sector, and many of the applications of AI in the sector can be concerning. This seems like a very positive application, and I know that the like discussions about feasibility of monitoring and analyzing the results of monitoring, that's been something that's been topical for a very long time. And I'm just wondering, how long has the technical capacity to do this kind of data collection and breakdown using AI, how long has that been possible for? How new is this?
We've been doing this for 2 years, basically, maybe more. And it's been a process with some of the broadcasters we've been working with. We are working with some of the biggest European broadcasters that are using our system, but they are using it now. Now we see the first of them starting to make strategic decisions based on numbers from 1 or 2 years. And that's been a process, basically. But so it's been possible for a while. But I think some of the main challenges is that when we look at this topic or subject of discussion, DEI, we tend to meet people that where it's important, but the budget doesn't follow their ambitions. And this is not expensive when you look at how much a TV program costs. It's probably 20 minutes of one news episode of a daily news program, I would guess, maybe. But still, the budgets lack funding to get this knowledge. But we can see when you start to have the knowledge, you can make strategic decisions. And we see that with the broadcasters we're working with now, because it's not just a question about gut feeling. It's basically you have a challenge here on your news program where every time you have a person of non-Caucasian descent, they are only talking about, problems in Africa, or they're not just being a doctor in this country, treating, other people in this country you're from. So, and that way, that's been a mind opener for some of the clients that we're working with, because now they can see it across time and channels.
And actually, that really, I think, links closely to one of the questions that's been put in the chat for you, which is this question about understanding the results and then building on them. So, you've described that some clients have started to do that already. Does your company actually kind of work with them through that process, or is it more that you simply provide the results and it's up to them to action them?
Yeah, and we basically do that. So the organizations we work with, they have people internally working with this. So we help them, get the data and know where to look for where they need to do some change. So we can see that the organizations, they need to, prioritize resources to have a person or maybe 2 persons to go out in different parts of the company to tell about this, to educate people, and also just to say that from my personal opinion and from the sorry, from the opinion of our from where we sit, we still think that self-reporting is something you need to have in your toolbox, because self-reporting makes journalists reflect on a daily basis. But you can only do self-reporting in specific types of programs, and you might not have resources to do it everywhere. So that's when a lot of the broadcasters we work with do self-reporting combined with AI as well. So they have AI for the 24/7 everything, every genre, and then they do self-reporting for special things they need to do to make the journalist aware of it.
Things that
so
mightn't
I think
necessarily play out in the AI analysis visibly.
it does play out, but when I have a background as a journalist myself, and I know if I get a report every month, I can look at a dashboard every day. It's something else when I need to write down to the right of my story. In this story, I have 3 sources, 2 females, 1 male. And then I reflect on that instead of just looking at a number saying, okay, this week this team had this amount of females and things. So in that way, it's a combination to get people to change their mindset, because it's to change the mindset, you need to do it every day for a long time. But you can't get the resources internally to help editorial teams change their mindset if you don't have the numbers you can put on the board meeting to say we have this challenge. We have this challenge in maybe just foreign movies, or maybe in our news department, on our radio, or maybe on social media, and etc. So.
There's another question in the chat, Lars, that kind of touches, I think, on granularity of data and how to kind of really dig into it. And you've described already some of the kind of splitting and cross-referencing that you can do with your data. But we specifically have a question here from Eva asking about, about visibility of origins. Is it only Caucasian or non-Caucasian, or can you actually break that down further into different kinds of ethnic origin? And then, she further built on that question to ask a little bit about stereotyping. And I think that's probably a little bit relates to the breakdown you were giving already about attaching non-Caucasian speakers to certain maybe topics or categories.
Yeah. We do break it down into different types of ethnic groups, but the broadcasters we've been working with, their main problem was basically too many white guys on screen. And basically too many males on screen. And so we can see for their channels, they've been like 70-30% split between males, females, and then we look at the different origins. We can see the main problem is still too many white people. So they've been just trying to look at, can we get this non-Caucasian group represented more before they go down to look at specific ethnic groups. And it's basically a pyramid of problems where the basic thing is too many males on screen. So if we can't fix that, we can't go to the next step and fix that. And if you can't, you don't build a house if the fundamental if the base of the house is there, and so that's a thing there. But we can break it down into more specific groups. Then, of course, the accuracy might be a bit less accurate. And regarding that, we will the AI works in the way that it says, okay, this is a person of, for instance, Caucasian descent, but if it's in doubt, it wouldn't put the person in any box. It would just say, I'm in doubt, so it wouldn't count. So that way, as humans, we are not able to say, okay, this person is of this origin, then the AI would react in the same way. And what was the second question?
It was to do with stereotyping.
Yeah, stereotyping. Yeah, if it's on. If it's regarding origin, the stereotyping there is, I would say, not existing, because it's based on a data set that is the most fair that's out there, and a big research paper on that as well. And it's the consensus data from US. But as I said, we won't put people in boxes if the AI is not sure. So in that way, it's not. Maybe it's stereotyping a bit, but it's the same as you ask the person to count the people in this program. They need to tick a box sometime, but in this way, it's the same box it ticks every time, because it's AI, so you can compare the data with all your channels, all your content, instead of in one editorial team, they think in one way, or in another editorial team, they think in another way. So that's the main difference there, I think.
Another question that's being raised in the chat is age discrimination. So we've talked a little bit about other characteristics, but and you mentioned that your AI is quite accurate in terms of being able to measure age. So maybe you could say a little bit about some of the findings there.
Yeah, the findings there for us is that we have a ±4 years in how our AI looks at people, and I think the humans we have ±6 or 8 years when we try to guess how old people are. But in the way that the insights from these data have been used is that some of the TV stations suddenly could see, okay, we can actually see the females are always younger, the hosts are always younger, and in that way they had been starting to work with trying to change that. Another thing is also that we need to remember is that this AI looks at what we see as humans. So if we see an actor in a movie and that actor has had a lot of plastic surgery, our AI will not be able to say, okay, this is Arnold Schwarzenegger, so he's 65 years old or 70 years old because he looks younger. So it will give him the age that we as humans will also think he has from just the sheer looks. Mm-hmm. And basically, we have some cases with, for some of the places we have worked with, where some of the hosts that we are recognizing with facial recognition to remove them from the data set, they have had some surgery of some kind, so we need to retrain our AI to be able to recognize them because the structure of the face has changed. But that's just the name of the game, I would say. And if I look at the hosts from different countries or different broadcasters, they tend to look younger than they are because they use a lot of makeup, they use a lot of, the lighting is really great in the studios as well. But so the AI looks at the content in the way that we as humans would look at the content. So it will basically think the same age as you would think. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
And you mentioned retraining the AI to actually capture some of those nuances. And I think that also relates to one of the questions in our chat, which is how have you trained your AI in such a way as to avoid some of the unconscious bias or discrimination that can be built into AI? This is something that comes up an awful lot, certainly in relation to facial recognition, that the AI works less well. Is that something you've worked on?
Yeah, and it is. And to be fair, I also mentioned that we have based our the algorithm to identify origin is based on a data set called FAIRface, and the FAIRface data set is the most, basically, hence its name, the most fair data set out there. In all the benchmark tests, scores better than AWS, Google Cloud, and so on. And then on top of that, we put in some different filters and other types of changes to reflect the society that we are serving. So it depends on if we are in one country or another country. And then I just need to say again, some of the broadcasters we've been working with, they have tested our data, and they can see that we're only 0 to 5% different from the self-reporting. So you are still able to use this data if it's a 0 to 5% difference compared to as a human. Then it's still good enough and really great to be able to make decisions on, because you can see the mega trends. Of course, if we go into a specific program of 25 minutes and there's a 5% skew, it can mean a lot. But when you look at thousands and thousands of hours of content or movies or radio and so on, 0 to 5% makes it doesn't make anything according to accuracy. Also, when we look at statistically mistakes for like what did the human actually do and how they work across an organization. I hope it was enough answer. Otherwise, I would be happy, because we don't hide the algorithms that we're using, and that's also why I'm upfront at telling about the accuracy. But I would love to go deeper into discussions. Our CTO would always be happy to jump on a call to discuss the more accurate the accuracy. And then, of course, we do also custom recognition models. I'm just going to say this not to compare a human to a Red Bull can, but one of our big clients is Red Bull, and we're able to detect every kind of Red Bull can flavor out there because we trained a lot of algorithms for that. So we do the same thing. We had a problem in Denmark in the beginning with people of Greenlandic descent. So we did a lot of retraining on that because we could see that they were identified as a group they shouldn't be. So we did retraining on that, and
Okay, well, that I think that transparency is helpful, Lars, and it's refreshing as well in discussions about AI to hear that retraining, transparency, etc., that it's possible, that when the will is there, it can be done. And I think really that leads us into quite a number of questions that have been put in the chat here that are trying to dig into a little bit more, some of the difficulties of this identification process. So you can see that we've had a number of people asking about non-binary identities, intersectional identities, and also whether AI recognizes trans and non-binary people, bearing in mind that what they might be saying about their gender identity might be more helpful in that regard sometimes than the identification purely on visual signifiers. So how is that challenge something that that could be taken up maybe?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question and discussion, because right now we do basically, it's a binary male-female, to be honest. And then, of course, we can look for the topics they discuss and maybe identify, okay, this topic is about non-binary people or persons. But the challenge is there if we look at, representation or misrepresentation. If we only look for when they talk about LGBT plus or binary, if we only look for the topics, we will only identify when a person is in the media discussing their sexuality, which is the same challenge as we have something with in some of the areas we work with people of non-Caucasian descent, that they are only in the media discussing problems with Muslims, war in this third world, and then we will not look at people for just being a doctor that are black, basically. So that's some of the challenges. But with facial recognition, right now we don't recognize non-binary people and stuff like that. Also, I think it's, from my personal opinion, I think it's maybe a challenge to go down that road, because from a technology perspective, you can do it. I know that there are some research papers out there, and I know there's some Chinese technology where they're actually able to say, is this person homosexual or not? And do we want to go down there, because that's very that's very touchy. So right now we do it's a binary in the way that males and females. And that's based on the science that we can see in bone structure and stuff like that. So it's what we see as humans. I would find it difficult to be able to tell my colleague who I know is non-binary to guess that from just looking at the person. So that's the same thing with the AI, and that of course is a challenge if you want to make sure that you are representing everybody. But then again, I will go back to the main challenge with building a house. If you don't have the walls, you can't put on a roof. And if we still, we can see across Europe, it's almost a 70-30 split on screen in broadcasting content. So if you're still there, you still need to raise that, just the split. And then we can start to look at the topics to see if we represent in the right way. And then we could start to look at the next issue.
Yeah, and I think you also made the point fairly going along that this is one tool, but that complementary analysis and reporting also done in-house is really vital for that, for that more in-depth picture, and you're making that very clear with the transparency about how this works. So thank you for that explanation. I'm now going to invite all our panelists back on screen, and we'll give them a little bit of a chance to react to each other, and maybe if there are other questions, I saw there has been a question posted for Flavia as well. Maybe we can have a last dive into some of those. So welcome back, everyone. So maybe I'll start with the question that was posted for Flavia in the chat, because I think a lot of people were interested in this question of accent. And it's true that that's a very important part of how we come over on screen and who we are. And it can certainly be something that can work against us, as you described. And I think people were interested in particular when you said accent isn't a protected characteristic. And if you could explain maybe what that means and what that kind of means in practice as well then.
Well, protected characteristics, we are talking about race, sexuality, disability, neurodivergency. So those are considered protected characteristics. So people cannot be attacked or discriminated based on those characteristics. Your nationality would be, but on the big scheme of arts, only talking about this particular subject of arts and the entertainment industry, it's not really considered protected characters, to the point that anyone can be, you see many characters, many especially British actors, they play Italians, they play Germans, they play French, they just put on an accent, and that's okay. They are not considering or hiring a French, a German, or Italian actor. On that sense, that is not a protected characteristic. I think particularly it should be. I think, especially in the end of the day, it's not as bad, but it's like black facing, if you think about it, because especially if you want to tell a story and you want to make fun of someone, you put on a funny accent. And people who speak with an accent, they cannot brush that away, they cannot fake and just like blackface. You put on a makeup, and then you wipe it out and go back to your normal white life, not facing the discrimination. Not the same with the accent. So you were British, now you're not, and then you go back to British. So you get best of both worlds. And people with accents, they are not able to, remove that, play British, and go back to their accent. So they face a lot of discrimination in the industry here based on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Flavia, for that. That very thought-provoking explanation, I think. Indeed, it's such a fraught area, really. I think on the one hand, it can be maybe a source of opportunity, and then on the other hand, indeed, can be something that can be so limiting. So I'm now going to open the floor for any final questions, if there are things people would like to hear before we let our panelists go this morning. And I also thought it might be a nice opportunity to allow our panelists each a kind of a closing thought. I mean, I think it was very, very fruitful to hear from each of you about, the different perspectives you bring and the different areas of change that you've been involved in. And to get that kind of wider picture of how that might join up in the future. So maybe if you'd like to share a final reflection on what you see as the main priorities going forward now, and how also, we as industry actors can actually, make sure to keep this as an important area of action in our day-to-day work. So maybe we'll go back to you, Jennifer.
Oh, well, it was great to listen to you. And well, Flavia, I love the word conscious I think is the key, because to move towards genuine and enriching diversity in the audiovisual industry, I think it is crucial for productions to focus not only in the superficial inclusion of people from different groups, but also seeking authenticity and accurate representation of their experience. And I think that involves awareness in the complexity or to inclusion of marginalized voices, promotion, the intersectional diversity. I think that's very, very important. It's not just about race or gender, it's about other identities such as sexual orientation, disability, religion, or accents, but not in a comic way, as a way of speaking, or as a cultural tradition. I think is essential for productions to be sensitive of all of this difference, and also for the IA learns that this database will be enriching their knowledge with all of these non-binary and non-Caucasic people. That's
Super. Thank you so much,
and
Jennifer.
yeah.
So, and then maybe we can turn to Flavia.
Well, my last message would be one of the mottos we are working on our committee is it's hard to be what you can't see. So it's mainly looking forward for the future of the entertainment industry. It's like we have a responsibility with the younger audiences. If they don't see themselves on TV, you know, if they don't get people who they can relate, characters, stories, or anything that they can relate, we are seeing already a massive shift of younger audience to TikTok, to Instagram, to YouTube, because there everyone has a voice, everyone can be seen. So we have that responsibility. So the more diverse, the more opportunities we give to diverse background people on TV, we are encouraging people, you know, we are taking away that, oh, I'm not going to pursue a career in the entertainment industry because it's not for people like me. If they see people like me on TV, on theater, on screens, yeah, we're going to guarantee the future of our, because sometimes I feel our industry is dying a slowly painful death, losing to internet. So there is a chance, and I think it lies on diversity. That's the future, the salvation for our industry. So it's more important than we actually, you know, care. We know it's important, but there's more to it than we actually see.
That is a very inspiring thought, Flavia. Thank you so much. I think that was a really insightful perspective to add to this closing session. And finally, Lars, top that now if you can, if you'd like to share a closing thought with us.
That's a difficult one, but I couldn't agree more. I have a daughter playing football in Denmark, playing soccer, and she didn't have anybody to look up to until, you know, recently, where women's football is becoming something you can see on screen. So that's just a real good case of you need somebody to look up to, and if you don't have it, you can't be it. And that's what I actually think also we can help with insights. But I would like to end on a sentence that I've been talking about for a long time, but it hasn't anything to do with basically diversity cats, but it's just to do something good with AI. And I think that's important also. We also, and that's again with diversity in mind, we did something with some of the smallest language in the world. Last week, we launched a machine translation of Danish to Greenlandic and Greenlandic to Danish, which hasn't been possible on Google Translate. They are spending millions of there every year to do translated content. And I think that's something we forget sometimes when we talk about diversity, because there are so many small languages and areas out there that are not covered by big tech. So that's just another twist to this. Because right now we can speak English, Spanish, and anything else to our phones, but you can't speak Greenlandic, you can't speak other small languages as well. So that's just another twist to this case. But I think diversity in every way across all types of technology and content would be great.
Okay, wonderful. Wonderful to also hear something about the harnessing the positive aspects of AI and you know, opening up that space as well for this kind of positive change. So thank you for that, Lars. Well, thank you to all of our panelists today. It's been wonderful to have you. Thank you for being the change makers that you are. Thank you for the hard work that you're doing in this industry. And thank you for making the time to be with us and for sharing it. So with that, I'm going to draw our discussions today to a close. This is, as you know, part of an ongoing project, so we'll certainly be staying in touch with all participants. We'll also make a recording of this webinar available to those that weren't able to join us today, and we certainly look forward to keeping you posted about the work we're doing at European level as social partners on this very important topic, and we'll be certainly keeping this discussion very much ongoing. So thank you everyone, and wishing you a very nice weekend ahead. Thank you to our interpreters. Thank you to Daphne for organising this event, and see you the next time. Bye-bye.